10 principles climbing Mount Everest 6 times in 2024. What did it teach me? I actually lied. I failed on my 6th attempt this year. And I did it in the first 4 months of 2024. I can tell you I learned a shitload, and I'm going to share these insights with you. In the first 4 months, my Strava clocked 50,864 meters of vertical elevation. That's 5.75 ascents of Mount Everest, which is 8,849 meters. It's quite a bit of vertical, and it taught me so much. These are the 10 core reflections that I had. Number 1, body. Training your body will decrease the distance to your mental and physical well-being. Number 2, energy. Learn to generate, retain, and dissipate energy. Number 3, mind. Climbing mountains will kick your ass and teach you so much about who you are. These beautiful, unmovable objects just teach us so much. Community. Doing hard things together increases human connection, and I think a super important part of running. Time, using energy, transcends time. I'm going to elaborate further after this on these points with exact details about what is really under the hood of these principles that I've learned. Number 6, clarity. Running 1 hour per day increases your experience of life by 100%. I did some stats and some maths, and I think it actually does. Consistency. You have to do the work. Goals. Identify the what, figure out the how. We often get stuck about just committing to the what, but really it makes the how much easier without having to worry about it at the start. Number 9, experiment. Learn, apply, learn, apply, learn, apply. As you go, run by run, day by day, we all have the internal technology to sense and respond to our environment, to our training, to our running in life. Number 10, planning. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Bah, 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 bah. Famous quote there, but it is very true, and I've been punched in the face a few times this year, so I'm going to dive into that further. Overall, set challenges beyond yourself. Do hard things with awareness and a smile on your face at every step you take, and love the work. P.S. These ascents were also technically done in my backyard, Aotearoa, New Zealand, on my home mountain, which you'll learn a little bit more about as we unpack these. So what is the mountain? Mount Maunganui. This is the mountain of Mount Maunganui, where I spent a lot of this time climbing this mountain. It's about 200 meters tall. There's many different routes that you can take up, down, and around it. It's a beautiful piece of coastline, a popular summer beach destination in New Zealand, and a great, great training ground too. So let's dive into the principles. Body. Number 1, training your body will decrease the distance to your mental and physical well-being. When you train your body, you convert air, food, and water into energy. Effectively, you throw these ingredients on the fire to improve your mental and physical well-being. When you are low on fuel, or have been putting the wrong fuel in, or haven't put enough in, your ability to propel your body and mind is reduced. Showing up and consistently hitting the trail showed me that even when you least feel like it, every time you stoke that fire, that runner's high is a positive reinforcement that you're building energy for something greater. Every time you put on your running shoes, you learn something about your system, your balance, or your imbalance. Hopefully, you observe the status of these fuel sources and adapt accordingly every single time. As you consistently stoke the fire and hit the trail, you decrease the distance to mental stability and energy management through learning and repetition. Ironic in that through the act of covering distance, you actually decrease the distance to mental and physical ease. Paradoxical. I surveyed a lot of runners at the start of this year as to what the main reasons were that they ran, and 50% of people said they ran because of mental health and mental well-being, and 50% of people said they ran due to physical reasons. So I believe those are intimately connected, and people actually have this innate ability to understand that connection in themselves, in their own bodies, through the act of running. So that's pretty amazing just to acknowledge that and reflect on that. Energy. Learn to generate, retain, and dissipate energy. Your ability to generate, extract, cultivate, and dissipate energy is all connected to the effectiveness and efficiency of your systems and bodily processes. This is not just physical, but mental too. When you run, your body's energy is converted to work and heat. When you climb big mountains, your goal is to learn the intrinsic principles of energy management. When to push, when to rest, when to recharge, when to dig deep. When you expend energy, it merely transforms into other forms, heat and work. It isn't destroyed, it is lost from your energetic body to the air, the pavement, the trail, and everything around us. Undertaking 170 hours of training at a minimum of 700 calories per hour during that training, it roughly equals about 119,000 calories. That's about a 30% increase in caloric intake requirements than when in a sedentary state of an average human being. Learning to generate, retain, and dissipate that energy is fundamental to your success in running, climbing mountains, and life. Whenever you expend more energy, you create more energy in life. Two noticeable examples of this is through community and time. When we spend that energy and give to others or give back to ourselves, it gives us a deeper experience throughout that process, which is often counterintuitive. Mind. Climbing mountains will kick your ass and teach you who you are. Know the name of the mountain you climb the most and observe your behavior and connection to it. During this training block, I summited Mount Maunganui, the equivalent of 219 times. That's nearly twice every single day for 4 months. A wise teacher, an ass kicker, an immovable, unshakable, yet through the act of climbing with body, energy and mind, every single time a lesson was taught, and awareness was brought forward to my current embodiment in this world. Growing up in Tauranga Moana, my mountain is Maua or Mount Maunganui, and Tauranga is the hometown. Its name translates to caught by the morning light. And this is an extinct volcanic cone at 2.35 million years old. There's a strong chance it's infinitely wise and seen lots in its time. 1 million people walk on that mountain every single year. Its essence is tangible. No matter how tall your mountain is, these gracious, immovable objects are our greatest teachers. Whenever I'd return from university, an overseas trip, living abroad, or coming back for Christmas with family, the first thing I'd do is I would rise early in the morning and climb before dawn to the summit. It's a bit of a pilgrimage if you've ever been there, and it's a magical experience with a different sunrise guaranteed every single time. The story of Maua, or this mountain that I climb, is said to be that it was frozen in time through running in the dark to the ocean to find his mana, or life force, we call it in New Zealand. As this mountain was pulled to the coast by the Patupahari, the people with magical powers who dwelled in the forest of Hautari, they hauled him to the coast chanting their magical chant. In essence, Maua was caught by the morning light and frozen in time. They say the chant went like this: "Arise, you who slumber, prepare ourselves, prove our manhood, heave to the west, heave to the south, Move heaven and earth. It awakens, it loosens, shudders. Cast your eye heavenward, towards Venus, the evening star, to light the path to the ocean of Tangaroa, the god who lures many into its embrace, into eternal darkness. Alas, the birds have awakened, dawn has come. Perhaps a little essence of this is imprinted every time someone climbs this mountain. I'm curious to know though, what is your mountain and does it have a story? It's important to know these things when we're on trail, when we're in the mountains, wherever we may be in the world, what the name is, what the story is, what its origins are, as it can tell us many depths of things about experiences, history, or things to avoid and watch out for as well. Often in names can be hidden essence, especially in native languages and naming of places. They can be associated with different, they might seem superstitious, but experiences that have been shared by people there. So that's a little about my maunga or mountain. Community. Doing hard things together increases human connection. Social running is a pillar of training and running not to be pushed to the side no matter how elite you are or how high or how speedy your goals are. My introduction to running was with a group of 40-plus-year-old dads who called themselves the Honkers and would run from a pub and back to a pub in a different local neighbourhood of each of the runners every Thursday night. They've been running for over 30 years and are still going to this day. Starting from a young age, I would get lemonade until I became old enough to drive, then to have a beer, and now to run and often probably have lemonade again. Sometimes I'll get a beer, but rarely. And yeah, this evolved over my time in different cities. When I was in Melbourne, I used to run with Run South Yarra, or public runners in Mount Maunganui these days. Same time, same place, rain, hail or shine. This is a reason to show up for each other and go beyond ourselves. Showing up and doing hard things with a group of like-minded individuals who are doing simple yet hard things like running up hills together builds momentum, friendships, and bonds. When you experience hard experiences together, no matter how big or how small your connection, it increases our life connection to those around us. So don't skip the social run. And if you don't have one or don't know of any of you in your area, then feel free to let me know. I might know one or someone nearby. Core thing here, don't skip the social run. No matter how lofty your goals are, no matter how hardcore your training plan is or you think you are, those social runs are so important. And I encourage everyone to prioritize those over smashing PBs or, doing my speed sessions. Eliminate that. Just go have fun as well. So important. Time. Using energy transcends time. Time is your number one resource in life. When you prioritize something beyond yourself, like training for a half marathon, or ultra marathon, you transcend time. What do I mean by that? Well, I trained approximately 6 to 8 hours per week for my first ever 50k ultra, which was the UTA 50 in the Blue Mountains, which is just out of Sydney in Australia. And when I completed the race with 2,500 meters of vertical elevation, I was tired and I definitely felt it. And it was the furthest I'd ever been at that time. However, the 2 weeks preceding that, I didn't go for a single run. Whether this was a good idea or a bad idea is a debate for another day, but what's the gist? Why am I sharing that, right? Well, I found myself back in the city, waking up, doing my usual routine, and the other activities, yoga and bouldering before work, and having an epiphany that I didn't feel like I had an extra 6 to 8 hours per week than I did before the event. Perhaps my body was utilizing these hours for longer rest to recharge, or perhaps the act of running and engaging my body, expending energy and quietening the mind gave me a way to transcend time. This is simply my experience, and I'm curious to know if anybody else has experienced this phenomena. It's fascinating when the body gets in a flow state, or we have something beyond ourselves to live up to. I think we can press time and we find ways to do things that we can sometimes never imagine. And it's only until we revert back to our old ways, or we remove that thing that we were working towards, or we've achieved it, that we sort of then go, whoa, where did all that time go? What was I doing with myself? So I'm really fascinated to know if anyone else has had that experience. Clarity. Running 1 hour per day increases your experience of life by 100%. It's a big number. How did I get to that? Let's go through it. The average person takes 10,000 steps per day and 20,000 breaths per day. Twice as many breaths as our steps for an average person. Okay, and if you've been going through the content in Skeletal Freedom Pro so far, you will know that we're actually chronic overbreathers, and we should be able to get our breathing down to about 10,000 breaths per day to match almost 10,000 steps per day. So, if you run for just 1 hour per day, you double your number of steps per day, and dependent on your breathing skill, also the number of breaths you take. Think of running like a time machine. The average person is encouraged to take these 10,000 steps per day to be, quote unquote, healthy. That infers a sense of mental and physical well-being. Running is merely just walking faster. I've observed through my training, and I'll be curious to hear your experience, but for every roughly 1 hour of running, my watch tells me I've taken 10,000 steps. So that technically means if I go for a 1 hour run in the morning, that and if I add up all the hours that I've been running, in the first 4 months of this year, I have already walked in 4 months of the year 130% more days in 2024 than the average person. So there is no life without breath and no experience without movement. So perhaps increasing our movement can increase our experience of life by over 100% in any given time frame. If you double your number of breaths and double your movement, do you double your experience in any given day? When you peel back the layers to your most basic levers, your body, energy and mind, you slowly start to reveal your internal personal reality. And peeling back these layers, step by step, breath by breath, you help yourself to see clearer into what you are here for and who you are. Nobody else can do this for you. We each have the ability to responsibility, to connect with our deeper essence. Does this mean my body has lived for 130% more time this year than the person who has not moved this much in this time? Also quite possible, right? Does this mean that my body is already 2/3 of the way through the year versus an average 10k per day healthy stepper? Quite possibly. Is this why society looks up to athletes as wide sages in society? Maybe they just actually have accumulated more life experience. Quite possibly. Maybe it's merely a factor that they have lived more fully in the hours, days, or time they have been given. I'd love for you to ponder that, and I would love to know if you have observed a similar number of steps per hour in your training or your running, and if my logical or illogical thought train here makes any sense. Consistency. You have to do the work. Loving the work is the aim of the game. Your application is changeable and dynamic. The work remains the same. What does it take to run Mount Everest 5.75 times in 4 months? Took me about 1.7 million steps, 50,864 meters of vertical, that's 2,825 meters of vertical per week. It's almost, it's more than an Everest a month. 1,636 kilometres, or an average 91 kilometres per week, which is just under 60 miles per week. 170 hours, it's an average 9.5 hours per week running. That's also excluding any yoga, gym, or supporting mobility, breath exercises to support myself. I think my Strava said I'd done 106 runs, which is about 6 runs a week. 18 weeks, 4 months, 2 races, 1 did not finish. All of these were the outputs to achieve the desired outcome. It just so happened that I had to climb multiple mountains. So the question is, are you doing the work? Goals. Identify the what, figure out the how. Did I set out to climb Everest 6 times in 4 months? No, definitely not. This was merely an output of 2 smaller, more tangible goals, outcomes. These goals were, number 1, run the Tarawera Ultramarathon 100 kilometres. It's called the TUM 102. Fully nasal breathing as minimally as possible. As most of you probably know, I have a natural movement philosophy, and I've been experimenting running with Vivo bare foot shoes. And I ran the TUM 102 in a pair of Vivo soft ground trails. Yeah, they got me to the finish line. And no, they were firm grounds actually. Trail FGs they were, black ones. And the secondary goal was run the Mount Batur 55k Ultra BTR 55 with 3,778 vertical elevation to test my abilities with structured training. So once I'd done the 100, I was like, what am I going to do for 3 months? And look, it started out as this one goal. And then number 2 came as a secondary goal as an exploration of my ability. Running marathons is like offshore yacht racing. It seems like a great idea at the time. You're in it, the wind blows, the swell's crazy, you can't get off the boat. But you know that as long as time keeps going and you keep moving forward, you will reach the finish line eventually. At the finish line, you think, that was absolutely crazy. That was stupid. I'm never doing it again. Then you sit down and sit with it and realize that it wasn't all that bad. When your head comes up, you go again. So where did the secondary goal come from for me? Wow, once I'd finished the 102, I didn't know what was next or if I wanted to do another long run. 12 months prior, I'd booked a yoga teacher training in Bali for May 2024. Already having my flights booked for a 2-month block to Bali. One afternoon, I simply Googled Ultramarathon Bali, and this BTR 55k event showed up for the 11th of May, and it turns out that I flew in on the 1st of May. So I was like, that's convenient. And that was that. This time though, I wanted to see what a coach and proper training block could push me further than my own belief and scratch the surface of my innate potential. And so I partnered up with Zoe from Inner Fight New Zealand, and we got to work, and that was really powerful, really, really powerful work. Understanding, different exercises, routines, things that I could push my limits to conquer that and be prepared to do that. So the irony is though, the start gunfight at 4 a.m. on the 11th of May at Mount Batur. In the pitch black, we climbed the first of the 3 volcanoes, and 10 k's in, I was in 3rd place. Surviving the summit and the rapid descent of the first volcano and lava field. We were literally climbing over these lava boulders this big, and it was crazy, running down sand dunes at night and off a volcano, and I thought I was going to see the view, and I forgot that it was dark, and I had my head torch, and it's a pretty good head torch, but you're still not as good as those clouds, and you could hardly see it. It was crazy. I thought there was going to be a beautiful sunrise, and I missed out on that at the summit for whatever reason. So, yeah. After I got across that lava field, I found myself on a rough farm road, and bang, in one single step, I rolled my ankle to a degree I'd never experienced. And I heard it go crack. It was like crack. And when I did it, I was like, whoa. It was absolutely crazy. So I managed to continue for another 10Ks, definitely at a significantly reduced pace, and I got passed by the man in fourth place, who I later found out went on to win the race as well. At that 20K aid station, I was faced with the decision to grit and continue for like another 30Ks of pretty unaided terrain. It was like go up another vertical mountain, down the other side, drop back off the back side of that, come back up, and then come back round. It was another 2,500 vertical. It was a big risk, and I was probably going to blow my ankle to pieces for one race. For what, right? Or another 30,000 steps. Or it was really hard, but acknowledged the day, the journey, all the training, all the hours, all the Everests. And yeah, just accepted that the sun will rise again for another race. Pulling out at the 20K aid station was definitely one of the hardest decisions I've had to make in a long, long time. What I learned was that with all of the belief, training and dedication, like 1 in 1.7 million steps of training is how accurate you have to be to achieve some goals. And so if you divide those through, that's an accuracy of 0.0000058%. So I admire Formula One. It's one of the most elite sports in the world, and the cars, they jostle for positions over thousandths of a second, right? So at the finish line, it's judged by 0.001 seconds. And each driver and car has thousands of engineers behind them to achieve this. So at 0.00058%, we're talking an accuracy in the human body here of 5 decimal places. That's 100 thousandths, not thousandths. So that's insane. So you could almost infer that like running an ultra marathon requires 100x greater accuracy than a Formula One car to align your body, your energy, and your mind. You have the ability to do this as a single being. It's insane. No pit crew, no team. Oh, yes, you might have a pit crew at your aid stations. But yeah, just in a single body, that's absolutely phenomenal. It's also a beautiful and gentle reminder that the goal is not the mountain, the journey is the reward. And with every step run with a smile on your face, you might get the opportunity to shine, and you definitely might not. The outcome is irrelevant, the process is important. Experiment. Learn, apply, learn, apply. Running ultra marathons is like 10-dimensional chess. As I'm sure many of you are learning or have learned along the way. Look, it's volume, distance, specificity, pace, nutrition, mobility, strength, weather, terrain, gear. The list goes on. Gear, I should put gear in there. Right? The list goes on. Every single run on trail, you learn to experiment and adapt. The terrain's different. When I moved from Australia, I was freaked out about snakes when I first started running there, and then through the big eucalypt forests and stuff, and you just kind of start forgetting about that. And then when I moved back home and started running in like Rotorua, and the trails there were like narrow and volcanic and pumicy, and like that was completely different as well. And so just the adaptation is wild. I guess reflecting on, some of these experiments, some of these core experiments I ran or mastered, I would believe getting closer to that word mastery over that journey would have been 1, breath control, increasing my exhale length to boost my parasympathetic nervous system response and decrease heart rate. If you've been doing the Breathing for Runners trainings, you'll understand how to master that. If you haven't checked them out already, feel free to dive into the classroom, check them out. It's really simple, right? Lower heart rate, calmer mind, higher running economy. If we want to go far, we've got to be efficient, and we've got to have high running economy. A note here, it was interesting in, I guess, my later training block when I was pushed on some uphill ascents, looking at like peak heart rate with nasal breathing. My heart rate kept at 181 beats per minute, which was indicating to me that you can control your body's exertion simply through regulating your breath. I know there's like, not conflicting, but like, I haven't seen studies yet. I've only got my own personal experience, but a lot of studies only sort of show that nasal breathing is efficient up to a certain level, like they say like 80% of sprinting. But yeah, like some of these experiments that I've run in my body have essentially shown to me that it's really powerful in stopping you from gassing out, which when we're looking to go really far is really important, right? Because it's all about energy management and regulating that breathing and that running economy. And yeah, a simple equation and a continued passion of mine is to support and train others to master their breath whilst running because of these insights that I've been experiencing firsthand, I guess. What other experiments? We've got nutrition. When you go ultra, you need to master at a minimum 4 core inputs: calories, carbs, fluids, and salt, right? At the climax of this period, I trained myself to handle 380 calories per hour, 85 grams of carbohydrates per hour, and I was running at about 840 milligrams of sodium per litre. And so, yeah, in the ultra tip section and going ultra content, I'll expand further on these and how you can train up to that and train into those realms. It's definitely a journey in teaching your body's gut, mind and body motility to be able to do that. And yeah, it's a journey, but it's a really important equation in going ultra and going longer in our bodies and our minds. So yeah, this is unique for everyone, and you have to train your gastrointestinal system to deal with this using fuel whilst exercising. And fun fact, gastrointestinal stress is one of the top 2 reasons why people DNF ultra marathons. If you master this, you're already ahead of 30% of the runners who DNF per race, right? So people that go beyond marathons, it's an even smaller percentage of people. But then if you just want to be in the top 70% already, just master your gastrointestinal work and you will be ahead of that. One of my big wins this last sort of 6 months, has been finding a savoury snack, and you'll probably learn why as you start experimenting with different foods, that completely resets my sweet senses in my body. You often really get over sugary sweet when running long, and your body gets turned off just by consuming so much sugary stuff. I don't know why most of these things are sweet flavoured, but it just seems to be the way they are. If you want this savoury snack that resets your sensory receptors to sugar, feel free to just let me know, send me a message, drop a comment, and I'll let you in on the secret that I found. But hey, it might not work for you, but I really hope it does, because it's pretty powerful. Experiments in footwear. A big philosophy of mine is simplicity, right? No more than necessary. Call it minimalism, call it finding the least amount required for maximum leverage. After retraining my body to run from injury, literally from the ground up, minimal footwear changed my life and enabled me to run again. I did this using Vivo barefoot shoes, as many of you would have understood from following the journey so far. I've observed 2 core things that people who run don't train. One is their breathing as a running skill. Number 2, their running technique. Changing your shoes to minimalist footwear such as Vivo barefoot shoes will instantly teach your body natural biomechanical function, make your feet and ankles stronger than ever before, and support you to run further with less injury. Other than busting my ankle at 1600 Ks, I've gone just as fast and just as far as most of my peers, utilizing completely minimal footwear. I also believe that had my ankles and feet not been as strong, the outcome in Bali when I busted my ankle, I personally think could have been much, much worse, because it made a noise and I went to the x-ray place and all of the doctors, and I was like, there must be something wrong with this, and they were like, it's fine, what are you on about? And I was like, wow. So yeah, really interesting. For the BTR Ultra, I knew it was on a volcano and had a hunch the terrain was going to push my minimalist footwear philosophy. Sort of about 1.5 months out from that race and my training, I experimented by obtaining a pair of Ultra Lone Peak 8s. They are zero drop shoes with little amounts of cushion. The reason for that was that during a training session, there's this awesome mountain called Mount Tiaroa, which means like the mountain of love. In New Zealand, it's about 1,000 meters vertical over it's like 5Ks up, 1,000 meters, 5Ks down, 5Ks across. So it's a 15K like circuit, and it's pretty gnarly. So it's great, but there's a 5K downhill gravel road, and doing that at a sub 20-minute 5K pace, I noticed that like the risk to heel bruising was high just because of like the rapid speed of foot revolutions. And it was like bigger, chunkier gravel, like this big. That was quite like angular and like machine and mechanistic, like it was out of a quarry. It was like mined rock, not like natural rock. And it was taking a lot of like mental energy to navigate that downhill terrain in Vivos. So I did do a 55k test run, which was pretty much a simulation of that BTR 55k Ultra with about 4,000 vert. And I literally used those Ultra Lone Peak 8s just out of the box. And we were doing four laps past the car, which was our makeshift aid station. And just each time I checked in, like, can I go again? Can I go again? Can I go again? Didn't wear them in. First time more than 4 laps round. Did a 55k Ultra in them, fresh out of the box. I did pull the liners out of them. And just for just extra closeness, so if I could rip some more cushion out of it. And there was this like slight rubbing on like the outside of one foot, just light, just where the like stitching joined the base of the shoe to the sole on the inside. But other than that, yeah, it was fine. So that was really interesting. But the next 4 weeks, my legs gave me grief. My experimental insight here is that due to your bones, and I've done like quite a bit of research on this, is that due to the bones' vibosensory response to every step and every surface that we take a step on, when you adapt to either minimal cushion or maximal cushion, your bone's structural response is modified, which essentially is a complex way of saying that when your foot hits the ground, it sends a vibratory response through your bones, and that's connected to how the rest of your skeleton moves, how your brain informs the body in other ways. And so by throwing a curveball at my body after literally what I'd reflect on now is years of minimalist footwear, my legs were like, yo, what are you up to? So probably not the wisest thing to do at that point in training, and that was probably like a month or maybe 6 weeks out from the run, like the race. So I was left with a bit of a predicament. So yeah, following the race though, and doing them in Vivo Barefoot soft grounds, which were like so awesome through the hard technical stuff on the volcano. Do I would have thought the Lone Peaks would have been more suitable? Yeah, the scoria fields were gnarly again. Like this is like clasts that are like angular, like this big, like it's just big and like it's mechanicalistic. It's not every day you're running on a exploded volcano or quarried chip that's like angular at sub 20-minute 5k pace. So it's asking quite a bit. So I would say that under 95% of conditions, the Vivos are awesome. Yet I'll probably look to incorporate a bit more of the ultras into my running moving forward. Look, compared to forest and bush tracks and tree root laden trails, Vivos win every single day, hands down. Preparing for the unknown knowns, how you deal with them is a test of character and cultivates your sense of self. That's key to 10-dimensional chess and ultra running, right? It's how do we understand that risk? How do we mitigate those? How do we train those experiences and adapt accordingly as we go through it? We're close to the end here. Planning. This is the last chapter, the last inside of climbing Everest 10 times, nearly 6 times since the start of the year. I don't know, maybe by the end of the year, will I get to 10? Maybe, actually. We'll see. Planning. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. I got punched in the face 4 times in 4 months. Number 1, during the Tarawera Ultramarathon 102k. I'd never run more than 60 k's in a single stint. It took me 4 hours and 22 minutes to do the first 50k and 8 hours to do the second 50k, right? So I trained for both my first 50k, my first 100k on full intuition, and racing on full intuition with no watch or pacing data was a big lesson here. If I had have averaged a lower speed in the first 5 hours, I definitely believe I could have come in under 10 hours. Slow and steady totally does win the race. There was definitely punch 1. I purchased a watch after this, but more as a tool to support when now I guess really pushing the limits. I essentially proved I could train for 100, train for a 55, train for 50. On full intuition with just time and distance, logged in Strava on my phone, and it's been interesting since then with the watch, looking at the cadence data, looking at the heart rate data, all those things. I even backported then when I started with proper coach, booting up Training Peaks. And I backported a whole lot of my, essentially all the training for my 102k. And when you start getting really hardcore into Training Peaks and stuff, like all that backported data, all the like recovery and performance curves, I'd actually naturally cross them over pretty much in almost the optimal way that I could have in prep for the 102. So, just proved to myself that, you can feel that, and your body does know, and it is an amazing tool, more so than the technology that we do have, which is also beneficial too, but it's just when to use it and to know what is beneficial about that. Number 2, training on course is one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself. Studying elevation profiles and GPX files is nice, but mountains have presence and nuance. For instance, on the Tarawera Ultramarathon 102k, I trained on course multiple times, but made an assumption on a little small climb I saw on the little map on my screen at about the 90k mark that I was like, it didn't seem major, so I didn't inspect it because it was kind of local to me, and I just thought, it's probably that hill there, and it'll go up there and drop down there, and I'll be home. But it was an absolute killer on dead legs, and then I had to go away from what I thought was the direction of the finish line, and mental process just started up from there. So that was wild. No assumptions, punch 2. Number 3, injury through edges. In my second phase, I started ramping up training with more specific adaptations. Oh, there's a spelling mistake. Adaptations. delivered by my coach, exploring the edge of possibility. It was during a downhill sprint session, of all things, that I wasted my hamstrings and had to give myself a week of slow going. Ironically, though, I had an inkling on the 12th repetition not to go to the 14th and call it a day, but because I thought, no, listen to your gut, you're out here, smash the session, push through, grit, go hard. I don't subscribe to that, right? Listen to your gut, listen to your senses. I think there's a smarter way of doing things than a harder way. And yeah, look, I want to be able to run forever, and being able to do so, yeah, we got to listen to our bodies in that process, and we don't have to put, our body in risky positions to be able to do so. Number 4, rolling my ankle at 10Ks into a 50K race that I'd climb Mount Everest for 5 times was not the prize I had visualized. Punch number 4. A DNF is a hard reality yet humbling experience that I am certain I will use as fuel on another day. To wrap it all up, team, set challenges beyond yourself. Do hard things with awareness and a smile on your face at every step you take. Love the work. Your energy is your business. Those are 10 principles that climbing Mount Everest 6 times, almost, in 2024 has taught me so far. And yeah, look, hopefully some of these insights or lessons can either resonate with you. I'd love to know your experience of doing hard things. Always keen to chat about the stuff, and look forward to seeing you all on training calls in the community. As you know, it's free to join Skeletal Freedom, and then there's the paid community for leveling up your running to the next level at Skeletal Freedom Pro. You can find those school.com/Skeletal Freedom. Get into the trainings, into the breathing trainings, into the technique trainings, level up your running, do hard things. Your energy is your business. I'm always fired up, ready to go. Look forward to seeing you smashing your running goals too. We'll see you soon.